Hello and welcome back to part 4 of Key to My Heart. Yesterday we left the action in Australia where Brian Remington was looking to, we think, to set up a deal that was going to double cross Ricky Masters. Now we're back at the conference with Simon and Melanie. So here we go. I hope you enjoy. Key to My Heart. For the next hour, Simon jotted down the salient points of the first speaker, his thoughts occasionally straying to his last words with Carol as he cast his mind back to a time in the office when he'd arrived late for work and she'd asked if he was okay. He was fine had come his rather gruff reply, and then the anger and pent-up frustration had been meted out on the broken stapler as it ricocheted off the wall. Then he'd apologised, sitting down opposite her, his head in his hands. She told him later she'd almost been afraid to touch him, not for fear of him lashing out, but that he'd withdraw further into his shell where she might not be able to reach him. She had relented, though, touching his arm gently, asking if he'd like a coffee, and he accepted her offer, wrapping his huge hands around the mug, sitting back in the chair, feeling more relaxed. "Sorry," he said, dropping his head about before. "It's okay," she said softly. "I never did like that stapler anyway." He laughed, and then, realising she'd seen his lip tremble, quickly buried his nose in the coffee mug. Silently they sipped their drinks, the air charged with an expectancy that was almost tangible, neither wanting to break the silence, both of them desperate to for totally different reasons. "A problem shared and all that jazz?" she eventually blurted out, evidently hesitant and embarrassed at this sudden turn of events from a man who had hardly ever spoken to her. "I'm not prying. You just look like you could do with a friend." "Thanks." He looked up at her earnestly, at last letting her see the anguish in his eyes, that one word translating into the many that he couldn't voice. "For the coffee." "If you ever want to talk," she smiled reassuringly. "You know where my stapler is," the smile turning to a grin. He grinned back. "I'll remember that," the grin dissipating, leaving only the same sadness in his eyes he knew Melanie had noticed but an hour ago. "Truly, I will." He was out on sales calls the rest of the day, but the next morning he placed a brown paper bag on her desk, inside of which was a brand new pillar box red stapler. No note or message, but she thanked him for it later. "I meant what I said yesterday, if ever—" He cut her off mid-sentence, squeezing her up her arm. "I know you did. And I will," he frowned, "but not at the moment." The speaker finished, and as the applause died down, Melanie stood up announcing that coffee and biscuits would be served in the conservatory, not the foyer, as stated in the joining instructions. Eager to grab a drink and hopeful of catching up with Carol, he quickly made his way across the hotel, scanning the conservatory for her, his height a distinct advantage, but she was nowhere to be seen. Seeing her again had brought back memories, and she had been so kind to him then, so thoughtful and caring at a time when he felt desperate, as though the world had turned against him and no one was on his side. She had shown him compassion, but tinged with sufficient humour to tease him out of his shell, to lead him from behind the wall he'd erected over the years, and allow himself the luxury of confiding in someone. He had a great affection for her, and they had lost touch since she'd left the company, his new job taking him all over the world, especially the States, as Melanie had pointed out earlier. He couldn't see her either, and she had all but captivated his heart, a fragile, dark-haired, dark-eyed beauty, full of defiance and spirit, someone who would stand up to him, take no nonsense from him. Given half a chance, see right through him. Granted, not many people could, but for those that had the ability to do so, they earned his undying friendship and affection. Carol fell into this latter category, and he scanned the room, again eager to find her. "Looking for your dinner date?" "Perhaps I just found her," he said jocularly. Melanie smiled, somewhat sarcastically. "I think not, Mr. Rochester." "Why so formal?" His eyes widened in mock astonishment. "Simon would be fine." Announcing to the assembled group they had 5 minutes left before the next session, she hovered like a mother hen to round up her brood, constantly checking her watch. Each time she checked it, he was drawn to her wedding ring, and seeing no ring there, noticed to her wedding ring finger, and seeing no ring there, noticed a band on the fourth finger of her right hand. "Divorced?" he asked, startling himself into feeling a complete and utter brat. What a question to ask a woman. "Yes," she answered curtly, "though it's none of your business." "You're right. I'm sorry." He cupped her elbow, smiling at a group of people, trying to get past them. "Excuse us," he said, steering her towards the window. "Look, can we start again?" "There's nothing to start," she answered brusquely. "Now, if you'll let go of my arm, I have work to do, and if you don't get a move on, you'll be late." And with that she strutted off, clipboard in hand. "Beauty and the Beast," he muttered. "And she's the beast, believe me," Carol whispered, standing behind him as he turned into her waiting arms, ever ready with a hug for his friend. "It's good to see you again. Where have you been?" "In the grounds. I needed some air." He frowned, looking concerned. "Headache?" "No, I just needed a break." "If I'd known you were coming, you'd have baked me a cake." They both burst out laughing. "Very funny," he said dryly, hugging her tightly and placing a kiss on her forehead. "I've missed you. How have you been? Married yet? Kids?" "I don't think we have time for this." She indicated Melanie stomping around with her clipboard, rounding up the troops. "Have dinner with me tonight." "We can't. We'll be missed. People will talk." "And since when's that bothered you?" "Since I got a husband." She thrust her left hand under his nose, showing off a large diamond and platinum ring. Very classy." He took her hand and kissed it. "Not even for old times' sake?" "The next session has already begun. You're late." They both looked into the stern face of the conference manager, who was obviously not amused at her recalcitrant delegates. "Sorry, Mel, won't happen again." She grinned sheepishly. "Friends?" "Do you two know each other?" he asked. "Oh, we've been friends for years," Carol stated, as though the world ought to know. "Don't you remember the pig—" "Carol!" Melanie growled. "Leave it." She checked her watch again. "Come on, he'll have started." The three of them hurried back to the conference room and entered quietly, looking shamefaced at their lateness. Throughout the next session, he paid little attention to the speaker, his mind drifting back to their earlier conversation. He had to admit that Melanie was indeed familiar, but he had no idea or even how he could have met up with her before today. Carol obviously wanted to say more to her, but her friend had jumped in, eager to keep something a secret. It would come to him. He had a brilliant memory for detail, and although it was eluding him, it would flood back to him, of that he was sure. There were times during the pre-lunch session when he began to wonder what on earth he was doing here, his company insisting that this 2-day seminar was just what he needed. What did they know? None of them had ever been out on the road, made a sales call, a cold call, nothing. They sat in their cosy offices professing that this was the way to go, the route their top-flight sales manager should take. Well, if he'd got him out of the office for 2 days, it was worth it. Near month-end, he felt compelled to get his paperwork in order, and there was nothing he hated more than being tied to the office. The travelling was hard on the body, the constant changes in time zones difficult to adjust to, but the buzz of the plane and the airport, plus seeing new places, was exactly what he needed. He'd never been able to settle. It had been much to do with the fact that he'd had little home life as a child. Orphaned at the age of 7, he'd been brought up by a kindly aunt and uncle, who, although they tried their best to integrate him into their family, never truly succeeded in his eyes. With no real parents or siblings to speak of, he spent much of his formative years alone. Alone and withdrawing into his shell, a shell that would take many years to penetrate, only to close over again at the slightest rebuff or emotional trauma. As the Americans so charmingly term it, he was damaged goods, his over-exaggerated personality a facade to hide the pain, an introvert playing at being an extrovert. Well, there we are. There's the next bit. And that's where we leave it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry for the few slip-ups there. I've got a bit of a dry throat this morning. If you like this, give me a thumbs up. If you don't, give me a thumbs down. It'll be on my YouTube channel. It will be on my Facebook page at Diana Redmond Books / Diana Redmond Books. So I just love it. You're coming back to me. I'm getting some fab feedback from you, which is absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for that. You do not know how much that means to me to get wonderful feedback. Well, any feedback at all. I just want you to interact with me. If you don't like it, please say. I won't be offended because the way that I write doesn't. Not everybody likes it. I mean, I like some Philippa Gregory books, and there are other Philippa Gregory books that I hate. So it's not always an author. Sometimes it's a story and you just don't like it. But you are being brilliant and you're coming back to me with a feedback, which is marvellous. So as I say, drop any comments below. That is absolutely fantastic. And I'll speak to you hopefully tomorrow. Bye for now.